Hi everybody.
Hey guys, welcome back to New Digs, and we're here in my kitchen in the northwest corner, and it's still a little too chilly for us to get outside.
It was sleeting on the
It
way
was
over here.
sleet, yeah, exactly. And there are going to be a couple of nights this coming week when it's going to be in the teens overnight here.
Yeah.
So we are by no means out of the woods. And we hope that you guys took a look at our seed
Catalog.
videos. Because today we want to talk to you a little bit about starting seeds indoors in preparation for planting once we hit our frost-free date.
Yeah, I think the first thing that you have to know, like once you have all your seeds, once you've sort of decided what you want to grow and
Right.
what vegetables you want to be eating and things, but let's assume you have all your seeds. What is the first thing you need to do? You kind of need to get organized.
Yes, exactly. And just as an aside, this is a lot of the seeds that we grow, and we do grow a lot of material from seeds. We tend to do a lot of direct seeding, which means you're planting right in the garden outside. And that tends to be most of what we grow, but there are some things we want to get started early, and we'll tell you how to recognize those things, how to know when to start, what materials you're going to need.
It's all in the seed packet. It's all in the seed packet. So once you look at the seed packet, it will tell you whether or not it's something that you need to wait till the last frost is done, or how many weeks before the last frost you might want to sow indoors. It'll tell you everything you need to know. So let's look at a few seed packs.
Sure. So there's a ton of information that you can get on seed packaging, and one of the things that I actually look for sometimes is packaging that has the most elaborate text on the back, because I like as much information as possible.
Mm-hmm.
But among the things it's going to tell you is the size the plant's going to get once it grows, how long it's going to take to sprout, so you kind of have an idea of when to expect it to germinate and come up.
Really most pertinent information for us right here is it's going to be when to sow it.
Exactly.
And whether you're going to sow it indoors under lights or outdoors directly.
Exactly. Yeah. So for us, for example, tomatoes, if we want to grow tomatoes from seed, we pretty much have to start them inside. And it says here, it's recommended on this one 4 to 6 weeks before transplanting. And we transplant when temperatures are basically a couple of weeks after our last frost.
So the way we're going to figure this out is we're going to have a calendar.
This beautiful calendar.
We're going to figure out, okay, when's the last date that it was probably safe to plant things outside around for us, around the last week of May.
And we're just going to back up, right?
Yeah, so we're just going to count weeks. And I'm going to mark them on the calendar, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then go back.
So here's May. So we got 3 weeks in May. Now we're going to go back to April. And then we've got...
So that puts us into...
early April would be...
The first week of April or so is probably, or last week of March is probably sort of like about when you're going to start thinking about these sort of heat-loving plants.
And tons of different ways to start seeds. And one of the things we like to do is experiment with, instead of just going to the store and buying the seed starting trays, which we have done and do. So something like these guys that have the ready-made slots, and you just add seed starting mix to it and plant directly in here. But you can also use lots of other different types of
Right, in the world where we all use way too much plastic.
Yeah.
And a lot of things just get thrown away. I'm trying to not buy any more of this stuff.
And you can reuse them from year to year, which we do. But they do get rickety after a couple of seasons.
That's absolutely my choice. I mean, what I have, I will continue to use and use and use until finally it is dust.
Right.
But that being said, I'm not going to buy any more of these. So there's other choices we have. And, I've seen people do things like plant in toilet paper tubes, and you might, get a dozen of them and put them in a crate and then fill that with soil and use that. So that's, that's an option.
Yeah, kind of cool.
What I've been doing lately is doing something called soil blocking, and I love a nice bit of kit, a little gadget. This is a soil blocker, and what it does, it makes a little compact cube of soil, and it works really beautifully. And there's no now I'll use something like a tray. These that you tend to hold up a little longer than some of the other things. So as long as you have a tray or something to sew into, I make dozens of these little blocks, and then you sew into that, and it's really surprising how well it holds up without having a pot around it.
Yeah, because that would be my worry. If it's just I've seen ones that you can use newspaper and you make little newspaper things, but
I've seen that too. That seems like a lot of faff, but this actually
a lot of what?
Hassle.
Faff. Is it faff?
Faff.
Faff.
So this I find to be a little less of that, and
the blocks hold
and
together.
the blocks hold together. When you water into your larger tray, and it just absorbs from the bottom up. And the nice thing about this, besides not using extra plastic, is that it makes like this self-contained little thing where it air prunes your plant, meaning that it sends out roots, and they don't get root bound. They don't like start
circle around.
So it works beautifully. I've been doing this for a few years, so I can recommend it. Now, if you don't want to go out and I happen to have a lot of these trays that I just sort of salvaged from back when I used to do these. But there are other things that you could use. Like I've got an orange crate that could hold a certain amount of things. And something I'm kind of like interested in trying, something I was just figuring out is, and I've always felt guilty about buying salad mixes and these things, and
that seems like a perfect vessel.
And I think I'll feel a little less guilty if I can reuse them for something else. So what I'm doing is I'm taking 2 of these salad mix containers, and I'm taking one and punching a bunch of holes in the bottom, and then the other one doesn't have the holes. Okay. And I can put it inside of that, and then I have the lid.
And we mentioned, or I don't know if we did mention actually, but that this comes with a lid, and the reason that that's good is that the humidity, when you're first getting the plants to germinate, it's nice to have that lid on top because it keeps the humid kind of biodome in there.
And then after they germinate and they start to come up, you want to take that lid off so they can get some ventilation.
Because you don't want them to rot, or it's called damping off if they get like a fungal condition, and all your babies will just keel over. So you want to avoid too much moisture. So this is perfect. So you have the holes in the inner one, and then the outer one holds the water.
So it has just enough drainage, but
that's great.
Yeah. So that's something I was thinking of trying here. I've got this nice wet mix, and I'm going to start by just really kind of loading it up. And there's these little, see how juicy it is. Yeah. And there's these 4 compartments now, and you really want to kind of push it in there and make sure that you've got them fully loaded. And
it's almost like making bricks.
It is kind of. You're basically you're making them out of
dirt bricks.
Seed starting mix. Okay, so this feels like it's going to be. You just plunge it down, and it leaves you with this perfect little cube with a hole already
for the seed.
Ready for the seed.
It's perfect. I really like that.
Yeah. So, and you get to play with mud.
Right. That is just the coolest thing, that machine. And I really dig that.
And it's really, they're really pretty sturdy.
They are.
They're,
Yeah, I would expect them to be just crumbling, but
No.
you're handling them like they
No.
look like little brownies. I could just be that
Don't get
hungry.
excited.
Yeah.
So this is, I can get, I don't know, several dozen in
Yeah.
here. So we've got our soil blocks in the container that we're happening to sow in right now. Now, the seed packet will say how deep it needs to be.
How deep the seed needs to go. Okay.
Right, and it usually has to do with how big the seed is.
Exactly.
Like the bigger the seed is, the deeper it goes generally.
Exactly. It's sort of like bulbs. It has to do, if a bulb is this deep, this tall, you want it to be planted that much deeper, whereas a teeny bulb doesn't have to go in as deep.
Right, and some seeds will want to be right on the surface.
Right.
And
because some seeds need light to germinate even. They don't even want to be buried at all. But.
Right, and in which case I sometimes might sprinkle a little sand over the surface because the light can kind of get through that, but it still sort of like holds it firm in place.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Just a tiny little bit. But in this case...
so this is leeks.
These are leeks, and I've already got a round of leeks going, but I figured you could always use more leeks. So
100%.
let's sow some more leeks. Now, I aim for one per unit, but
it's hard. I mean,
it's hard
when they're so tiny. These are just like teeny.
Right, and the seed blocks, soil blocks rather, have a little sort of hole, a little indent already made in there. So you just have to aim for that on these particular sheets because they said a 1/4 inch deep. And I just take a little of the dry seed starting mix and just sort of sprinkle it in there and kind of fill that hole a little bit. And that's all you need to do. Now,
and these are already moistened because the soil was moist, so we don't have to water now.
Right. So because it's very moist. So I'm just going to put the lid on there and I'm going to go put this on my heat mats.
But they basically are a plug-in flat mat that keeps a very low level of heat. The reason that you want that is because it's stimulating, it's giving heat from the bottom to stimulate root growth. And that's really what you want with seedlings. You want them to have a really strong root system and the top because you don't want things getting super leggy.
Exactly. So you want to put it on the heat mat and it'll germinate in. So this one is 7 days, 7 to 14 days.
It says sprouts in 7 to 14 days. It's ideal temperature. It gives us 45 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit.
Which is exactly what the seed mat will give you. It'll give you that 75.
And just a normal indoor house temperature.
Right, but it'll apply it right to the roots, so that's nice. So we're going to put this on the heat mat. I'm not really even worrying about a light from above until it germinates.
Right.
And once it germinates, and it germinates means that's
the most exciting day. You see the little green
sprouts.
Yeah.
As soon as they're sort of like all pushed up above the soil, then we're going to want to go ahead and take the lid off. And then that's when you want to make sure that you've got your lights on.
Yes.
And you're going to want the lights very low.
Yes.
Like just a few inches above the plant. And they're going to need lights. I like to do lights for at least 12 hours a day, if not 14 or 16 hours.
And when we say lights, we mean they're just fluorescent shop lights that you can buy really inexpensively. Some people just do them on a windowsill, and that can work if it's very, very bright, but I don't think it's a crapshoot.
I wouldn't recommend it when we live this far north. I have friends who say, oh, I've got a big giant window, it's going to be great, don't worry about it. They make leggy plants and they're never going to produce the same way, and
plus it's cold. It's the window itself, you're getting drafts,
right?
So
if you don't have the grow lights and if you don't have the heat mats, I recommend skipping all the indoor seeds and just buying seedlings. There's no shame in buying seedlings.
And exactly, and nurseries, we at the nursery where I work, we already have leeks, we have onions, we have some other things that are already sprouted. It's too soon to put them out, but soon. They're cold weather crops, so they should be okay.
So there are things to sow outdoors later, and you can do that. But if doing these heat-loving plants is too much work, then just buy the seedlings. But it's very satisfying to be able to sort of choose what varieties you want.
And that's really the reason to do it. Because
Yeah.
many nurseries just, they're not going to order trays and trays of 18 different varieties. So if you want to grow something really
Specific.
interesting,
then this is what you got to do. So let's do Melissa's method with the
So this is another type of seed starting tray, and this one's interesting because this is really heavy duty plastic. These, this is what you typically see, as we said. But this is it's really rickety. And if I get 2 years out of this, that would be great.
Mm-hmm.
But this one is much more heavy duty and reusable. So all I would do with this, unlike in Jill's situation where she moistened the soil first, I'm just going to take the soil and I'm going to just put it in here and try to get it in as evenly as possible. Okay, so these are decent size. This is sort of like the medium-sized soil block that you were using. It's a similar idea, so that I probably wouldn't have to transplant and mess with this. And I'm trying to make sure that each of the little cells has kind of evenly dispersed.
So are you giving them?
I'm giving it a little mush.
A little
mush down, because I remember I'm going to need to cover them. Cover the seeds with something with a little more soil, so I want it to be tamped down a little bit.
Yeah, and you want the seed to have firm contact with something.
So maybe I'll just grow a couple of your leek seeds in here, just because this is a good time to start those. And I'm going to do the same thing. As Jill was saying, you want to try to you don't want to just sprinkle it like crazy, because then you have an issue where you're going to need to thin. So then I'm going to just, as Jill was saying, using a little bit of sand on top, I'm going to just take a tiny bit of this seed starting mix, which again is dry. Now remember, I've got water in the bottom, so it's going to start coming up from the bottom. But I'm just going to try to cover these. You do want to tamp them down with your hand, because you want maximum contact of the seed with the soil. It's going to help with germination, and it's going to make sure that you have a nice tight block when it comes time to plant the seeds. And then I just have my water bottle. And you can actually do this, give it a little. And then I'm just going to give it a spritz. And ideally, I want this on more of a spray kind of thing. Just going to moisten the top. It's good to keep one of these next to your seeds. Anyway, because once you've got the plastic off the top and the seeds have germinated, you have the reservoir down below, but it's nice to have this just to kind of keep the seeds in a nice humid situation.
Right, and when you go to check your seeds to see if they need water, you kind of sort of like lift the corner. You can feel the weight.
It's true.
And sort of if they feel really light, you've gone too far.
Yeah.
And
you need water.
Yeah.
Once the seedling has what they call its first set of true leaves, at that point you can take the heat off. And what you're going to see initially, they all look kind of the same. You get the little cotyledons, just the little fat leaves.
So when it first germinates, it sends up a little thing, and it has 2 little leaves. And those little leaves won't look anything like what the plant normally would look like.
That looks like a carrot.
You're thinking that doesn't look anything like a tomato. And then a few days later, it'll send up a second set of leaves, and suddenly those leaves will look like a tomato. So that's what they mean by true leaves. So the first 2 little leaves don't really count, and then the second set of leaves that will actually look like the plant that you're planting will be the true leaves. Once those are in, then you can take off the heat and
but you're still going to have it. The lights are going to be consistent, and as we said, until from the time the babies germinate and those first set of baby leaves come out, until you get them outside, they have to have the light. And if you don't, or if the light is too far away, they're going to get what we call leggy. And you'll know exactly what that means. They'll start to look like they're reaching, they're stretching to get to the light.
Yeah,
you
and
don't
they're
want
often
that.
kind of leaning.
Yes.
They're looking for light.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
really hard to recover from that. Once, goodness, that seems like a lot of information.
It
for
does.
one day.
It does. It does.
I hope we haven't scared you.
No.
It's really not.
It's not hard.
It's just you get to play in the mud.
Yeah, exactly. So guys, thanks again and for joining us in the kitchen. And I am so hopeful that our next video will be able to be outside.
I think I'm gonna plant peas this week.
Peas, and you said too that you have leeks that an earlier set of leeks that you grew from seed that are out in your cold frame already, right? So I hope you'll get some footage of that and show us, because I really want to see that. Well, thanks again, guys, for joining us on New Digs, and I hope you like our aprons. This was Jill's design. This is one of my Christmas presents. And so if you like the merch, maybe we'll start selling New Digs.
Boy.
People might like the merch. All right, guys, take care. We'll see you next time on New Digs. Bye.